of Commons have been the subject of bullying at the hands of some MPs. A BBC Newsnight investigation has seen files and spoken to witnesses who say staff known as Commons clerks have been mistreated. Witnesses claim Labour MP Paul Farrelly made a committee clerk's continued employment at the House of Commons impossible. Newsnight's Chris Cook asked one witness how Mr Farrelly's behaviour manifested itself.
Aggressive, dismissive, rude, and ultimately bullying.
And how much of an effect did it have on her?
It ground her down. It basically reached crisis point and she could no longer do her job. He had undermined her and bullied her so much, so regularly, so badly, that she was just left entirely exhausted and incredibly distressed.
And Newsnight's Chris Cook joins me now. What's been the response from Paul Farrelly?
We haven't actually heard from Paul Farrelly today, but his case is actually something of a totem for women in particular working at the House today because of what happened after that clerk who had to leave her job complained. There are two really odd things that have sort of stuck in the mind of clerks. The first is she raises a complaint. It triggers an internal inquiry run by another member of the House staff under an HR process that was then only 8 months old. But when she raised the complaint, other women came forward and they had 8 years of testimony about Mr Farrelly's behaviour. But because the HR policy was only 8 months old, they decided they can only look at 8 months of his behaviour when they were making their decisions. So they feel like this is, the game is not being played fairly on an even playing field. The second thing that happens is they go into this inquiry. A member of the House staff goes through the allegations that she makes, not the other women, only her. And he's not able to make a firm conclusion on some of them, but he does on others and upholds her complaint. He decides that, yes, this was bullying. His conduct was offensive and insulting. He undermined her. And there was no doubt about her competence either. That's made very clear in the report. That document is then taken to the House of Commons Commission, which is a committee of MPs, and they decide really not to do anything. In fact, they suspend the policy. They don't take action against Mr Farrelly. They say that the legal basis of the policy was not sound, so they couldn't actually take action. And they also say that what happened, that any system that relies on clerks investigating MPs is not fair and robust.
Right, but you spoke to Paul Farrelly before this piece went out. What did he say? He released a statement.
So Mr Farrelly denies any bullying. He says that in November in 2012, allegations were made about me having bullied a clerk to the committee during the compilation of the phone hacking report. These allegations were investigated and not upheld. Despite this, I apologise if I had inadvertently upset the clerk who'd suffered stress. The policy under which they were investigated was considered to be so unfair to those about whom were complained that it was immediately withdrawn and replaced by another policy. The case is really not really about Paul Farrelly in this one. This is all about the House of Commons receives a complaint and clerks have taken the lesson that the system kind of can't be trusted. And in fact, the process of reforming the House's HR processes, introducing a new cut-off date, is used, in their view, to protect MPs.
And what about the Speaker, John Bercow?
So, in about May 2010, John Bercow got a new private secretary, a woman called Kate Ems. Kate Ems only lasted till, I think, February of the year after, when she was signed off sick. She had to be found a new job somewhere else in the House. In fact, they had to modify that subsequent job so that she wouldn't come into contact with the Speaker. Her managers were told that she had post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, Kate Ems is actually a person about whom she got that job because she was regarded as, a phenomenal talent. She was the kind of person you wanted in this enormously important role. And, there's enormous amounts of sympathy for her. And everyone knows what happened to her because they had to create these new systems around her in a subsequent job.
But he's contested the allegations as well, hasn't he?
John Berco's spokesman has said that the Speaker completely and utterly refutes the allegation that he behaved in such a manner either 8 years ago or any other time. Any suggestion to the contrary is simply untrue.
Right, and Downing Street has also been speaking about this. The spokesperson described claims by House of Commons staff of bullying by MPs contained in a Newsnight report. Your report as concerning, and that there's no place for bullying or harassment of any kind, which you would expect. They also note that John Bercow, the Speaker, has said the accusations are being contested, but the Prime Minister has full confidence in the Speaker, according to her spokesman. Are you surprised by these allegations?
No, I'm not really. The House of Commons, or Parliament in general, is a very strange place. It doesn't operate in the way that a conventional workplace operates. It's not a conventional organisation with hierarchy. MPs, and I should add that I think most people would accept that most MPs don't behave in this fashion, but a small minority do, and MPs really kind of run the place. And in a group of 650 people, you end up with a small minority who really want to be treated almost as little gods. And I think the way in which the system is constructed means that staff then don't necessarily have adequate protection. There's also confusion about who is investigating what, and it's a legacy of the place has thousands of people working in it, but is not constructed with a chief executive. I mean, it can't be, because it's a democratic institution, but there's going to have to be, after this investigation, there's going to have to be some form of change.
Well, and Chris Cook's report obviously reveals that it is very difficult to know where you go to complain, and in fact people within the building are investigating each other to a certain extent. Do you think there needs to be an independent process now, a different body coming in to investigate complaints?
I do. And what I think was really terrific about the Newsnight report was that it took the time to explain the situation, how this occurs. When we talk about a systemic culture of bullying and harassment, when we talk about a male workplace culture that promotes or facilitates bullying and harassment, the Newsnight report took the time to show that this is what it looks like, this is how it manifests, this is what it means. And I think unless we do take the time to look at it, we're not going to be able to find out ways of tackling it.
Right.
But I think that the danger is, and we saw this during the expenses crisis, that there are real risks in bringing in an outside independent body because of the strange constitutional position of Parliament. I mean, Parliament is sovereign. So if you place an institution, an independent body above Parliament, you do interesting, strange things to the Constitution. What I would like to see happen is the vast majority of MPs who don't behave in this fashion really take this as a wake-up call, take charge of the process and institute changes.
Right. Thank you, Chris Cook, for coming in.